The most important decision you can make in F-Zero 99 is which vehicle to use in each race. With 4 very different options to choose from, it helps to know which fits your style of racing, as well as any advantages one machine may have over the others. I decided to put each vehicle through a series of tests in order to compare the Blue Falcon, Golden Fox, Wild Goose, and Fire Stingray across a number of different data points. You may be familiar with my first vehicle breakdown video, but this time around I dug even deeper, collected even more precise data, and also included changes from the new 1.3 update. My name is Niles, and I'm going to take you to F-Zero driving school. F-Zero 99 presents quite a few challenges when trying to measure and compare the characteristics of each vehicle. Data points like speed and distance are much easier to measure than power and damage-based qualities. The most important thing about making good measurements is to use a reference standard to compare to. In some areas, the measurement standard was very easy to define. In others, I had to work harder and get a little creative. At the beginning of each section of this video, I will briefly explain what standard of measurement I chose to use, why I made that decision, and how I came to define that standard. If you have any ideas on other reference standards that may work better, please leave a comment, and I might use it the next time I update this video. One more thing before we get into the nitty-gritty. A quick comment on data mining. While analyzing the game's code for specific variables provides great value to the discussion, I prefer to measure the performance of the vehicles in action. Remember that the values obtained from data mining are intended values. Other parts of the game's code may or may not inactivate or change those values. Measuring performance gives us a real-world result. Or virtual world result, I guess? Anyway, it gives us something tangible to observe and to compare with other data points. I first set out to measure one of the most variable characteristics between the 4 vehicles: survivability. Each vehicle's survivability is represented by its power bar, which essentially functions as an HP meter, since vehicles explode if they take any type of damage when the power bar is empty. Because of this, I will be using the terms HP and power interchangeably throughout this video. The power bar for each vehicle is 400 pixels long, but those pixels represent different values for each vehicle. In order to get a standardized max HP measurement, I subjected each vehicle to an identical damage over time constant, also known as parking the vehicle on a barrier and seeing how long it takes to blow it up. In my previous vehicle comparison video, I used these times in an OPS-like equation to find each vehicle's HP relative to the average. I found this to be a flawed approach when trying to update the vehicle HP data with the latest patch. Because all of the values are related to the average, and changing one's vehicle's HP changes the average, it's impossible to make a single vehicle change without affecting the others. Long story short, I was wrong, okay? So we're going to do it differently this time. After measuring the survival times for each vehicle, I used a nice round 10 HP per second barrier damage rate to determine each vehicle's HP per pixel value. And yes, I know, choosing the damage rate this way is completely arbitrary, but the beauty is that it doesn't matter. Whether the damage rate I use is 10, 50, or even 93.178, the relative HP between the vehicles stays the same. So you there, commenting that my barrier damage rate doesn't match what's buried deep in the game's code? Yeah, that's probably true. But if we substitute the actual value for the rate I used, we will still get the same relative results and be able to make the same conclusions. Okay, now that I've got that settled, the HP per pixel value for each vehicle, along with its maximum HP, is shown here. Going back to survival times for just a second, these are the current survival times of each vehicle, and the survival times pre-1.3 update. Notice how the Golden Fox got a significant increase in survivability, while the other vehicles received virtually no change. The patch notes claim that the barrier damage was reduced for all machines, but this is clearly not true. This leads me to believe that there is something under the surface that is affecting how these balance changes are being applied. A vehicle consumes a portion of its HP when performing a boost. The HP used is represented by a checkered colored area of the power bar that depletes while the boost is active. Each vehicle requires a different amount of power for a standard boost. Those rates are shown here. By converting these boost cost amounts to a percentage of the vehicle's power bar, we can see how many boosts each vehicle can use with a full power bar. Some interesting things jump out from this data. Although the Golden Fox has the least HP by far, it also uses the least amount of power per boost. Blue Falcon's boost cost was reduced in the last update, helping it stay competitive with the Fox. While the Wild Goose has the most HP of the group, it is the Fire Stingray that gets hit with the highest power cost per standard boost. We'll talk more about boosts later, including top speed and duration, but for now, let's move on to another factor related to the power bar: vehicle damage. In addition to losing HP for each boost, vehicles lose HP when colliding with barriers, obstacles, or other racers. What's interesting is that the damage rates for some of these sources are not the same for each vehicle. Much like the boost cost system, each vehicle takes a different amount of damage from hitting a red bumper, driving into a mine, and so on. I measured every type of damage in the game, or at least every type of damage I could think of. Let me know if I missed one in the comments, and I'll add the data into the description of this video. In addition to measuring the HP cost of each damage type, I also calculated the amount in terms of boosts lost. Since damage and boosts draw from the same HP pool, it can be helpful to think of damage taken as boosts lost, and vice versa. Contact with barriers is the least significant form of damage. Light barrier contact, which I set at 10 HP per second earlier for calculation purposes, translates to anywhere from about 22% to over 45% of a boost per second, depending on the vehicle. This sounds like a big deal, but if you're spending a whole second riding the barrier like this, you've got bigger worries than how many boosts you're losing. Barrier collisions, which occur when a vehicle travels far enough into the barrier to touch the outer black border, take off more HP than barrier contact, but are still not majorly significant by themselves. Problems can occur when control of the vehicle is lost and multiple collisions are chained together, like in this section in Red Canyon 1, or here in Port Town 2. Speaking of Red Canyon and Port Town, magnets, both ground and edge variety, have the same damage rate as barrier contact when touching your vehicle. The most dangerous stationary source of damage are mines. Found on a number of pro and mirror tracks, mines will explode and cause you to lose control of your vehicle if you run into them. The absolute amount of damage taken from a mine by each vehicle varies, but oddly enough, the damage taken relative to total HP is very close to being even. When it comes to truly dangerous sources of damage, the first thing that comes to mind is, of course, bumpers. Gray and red bumpers spawn throughout the race and follow predetermined paths throughout the track, while blue bumpers are controlled by racers who have crashed out and do not follow a predictable path. Gray bumpers cause between 5.5 to 7.5 HP damage per bump, but more importantly disable steering controls for a brief moment. This can cause you to take accidental damage from barriers or other bumpers. Blue bumpers... Okay, I'll be honest here. I had a real hard time getting good measurements on blue bumper damage data. The reason for this is that most blue bumper pilots aim for crowds of drivers, which makes it difficult to isolate and accurately measure a specific blue bumper hit. Blue bumpers also tend to aim for the pit area, which makes the damage rate of a hit impossible to measure, with the HP recovery also happening at the same time. The most accurate data I was able to collect measured blue bumper data as being almost the same as a gray bumper hit. If you feel you have good data on this, please let me know in the comments, and I'll add it into the video description below. As the race progresses, the bumper spawn type shifts considerably from gray to red. Red bumpers have the highest single shot damage rate of any obstacles in the game, so it's in your best interest to avoid them. A collision with a red bumper deals between 18.5 and 37.5 HP damage per hit, depending on the vehicle, which equates to almost a full boost of lost HP. Next type of damage to talk about from a standpoint of seriousness is damage from other racers. While the damage taken from each opponent bump is very small, multiple bumps or even driving in a crowd can cause the damage to add up to significant amounts. When I was trying to isolate and measure the amount of damage caused by each type of vehicle, I noticed that the results were wildly inconsistent. What I think that's happening here is that Nintendo's online server capability, or incapability as I guess, is factoring in here. I'm guessing that some of these bumps are either not actually happening, or maybe they're spin attacks that are not being shown on the player side. What I will say is that taking damage from vehicle bumps and attacks can build up to significant levels, losing an average of about 3/4 to a full boost worth of HP per lap just from opponent bumps and attacks. Racing at the front of the pack will reduce this HP loss, but also increase the risk of gray and red bumper collisions. Now let's talk about healing. There are two ways to compare healing ability across the 4 vehicles: heal rate of HP per second and full HP heal time. Heal rate gives us an easier way to compare vehicles' strengths and weaknesses, while heal time gives us a more practical sense of how these differences play out within a race. Each vehicle's healing rate is shown here. Golden Fox has the highest healing rate, a trade-off for having the lowest total HP. Blue Falcon has a heal rate comparable to the Golden Fox and a much higher max HP, which makes it very strong in this area. Wild Goose and Fire Stingray have similarly sluggish healing rates. Considering the difference in max HP between the two, the Fire Stingray ends up the weakest here. Shown here are the full HP heal times for each vehicle, or the time it takes to fully replenish the power bar from 0. This means that the Golden Fox and Blue Falcon have a much larger advantage on tracks with shorter pit areas, like the Deathwind and White Land tracks. There's one more thing to look at that's related to the power bar, and that's knockouts. Anytime you make contact with and destroy another vehicle on the track, either with a spin attack or a regular bump, you are credited with a knockout and your power bar extends by 46 pixels. With the HP value of pixels considered, here's the HP bonus provided by a knockout for each vehicle. Not only does the Wild Goose receive the highest bump in HP from knockouts, it also enjoys the advantage of having a spin attack cooldown that is 1 second faster than the other vehicles. This advantage is even more pronounced in pre-races, as knockout power bar extensions are carried through each race to the end of the series. The knockout power bar extension bonus applies to both bumper and racer knockouts. However, racer knockouts give an extra bonus by filling your power bar completely. The next biggest factor to consider when comparing the vehicles in F-Zero 99 is differences in speed. Measurements in this area are fairly easy to perform, considering the UI displays your speed in kilometers per hour. The top speed of each vehicle is shown here. Other than the Fire Stingray, each vehicle's top speed fluctuates within a range of 2 to 5 kilometers per hour. The Fire Stingray's top speed of 478 kilometers per hour is the fastest of the 4, and its stability allows it to be used as a constant for any distance measurements that need to be made. In addition to top speed, I measured the acceleration of each vehicle by measuring the time it takes to go from 0 to 400 kilometers per hour. The results of these tests are shown here. You'll notice that in general, a vehicle with a higher top speed has a lower rate of acceleration, and vice versa, with the Fire Stingray taking over 2.5 times as long to reach the target speed as the next slowest machine, the Wild Goose. Deceleration over rough track is also a consideration when comparing vehicles. While top speed over rough is essentially constant across the board, a vehicle's rate of slowdown over rough is related to its acceleration properties. This means that the Stingray can carry decent speed over rough the longest, while the Golden Fox gets dragged down almost immediately. Speaking of deceleration, each vehicle suffers a top speed penalty when its HP drops below 3.75% HP. Standard boost top speed is fairly even amongst the vehicles, with one definite outlier. The Blue Falcon's boost speed clocks out to be about 2.5% higher than the Goose and Stingray, and 3 to 5% higher than the Fox. It's a small margin, but when races come down to hundredths of a second, every little bit counts. As far as boost duration, all vehicles are in an even playing field, with each boost lasting 3.5 seconds. It may seem as though the vehicles are even with each other, having a jump speed of 478 km per hour, but this is actually a sneaky disadvantage to the Stingray. Other vehicles get a small boost in top speed when hitting the jump pads, but the Stingray only maintains its top speed. Jump pads that don't involve any type of shortcut, like this one in Mute City 1, are basically optional for Stingray drivers but serve as speed boosts for everyone else. An area where vehicles are decidedly not on even ground is with the use of dash pads. Each vehicle's dash pad top speed, along with the time spent at that top speed, is shown here. The Blue Falcon gets the most out of dash pads with the highest top speed and longest top speed time, while the Fire Stingray once again suffers in this area with the slowest speed. The length of the dash pad effect is shown here, with the longer effects going to the vehicles with lower top speeds. I stand by my comment from my last video on vehicle characteristics. Turning radius does not tell the whole story when analyzing a vehicle's handling. The reason for this is that while a vehicle can have what measures as a smaller turning radius, indicating better handling, the vehicle may also have much less grip through the turns at high speed, making it more difficult to pilot. Considering this, I'm once again presenting the turning radius data along with a subjective slip rating of 0 to 3 for each vehicle. Now, this is not to say that the Golden Fox has worse handling than the Wild Goose, only different. In fact, a vehicle with a higher slip rating can utilize power slides through the turns to maintain speed, but a vehicle with a slip rating of 0 cannot. Using the L and R buttons to lean into turns reduces your turning radius even further, and allows you to strafe on straightaways at a rate of 20 meters per second. Also factoring into vehicle handling are the wind from Deathwind tracks and the magnets from Portdown. The strength of each of these is shown here. Both of these can be counteracted by leaning in the opposite direction using the L and R buttons. Because super boosting is the same no matter what vehicle you are using, an analysis of the system may seem out of place in a compare-contrast video. But I felt it would still be valuable information, especially with my more precise measuring methods included in this video. The Super Boost meter, located below the power bar on the UI, is also 400 pixels long and represents the same amount of Super Boost cost for each vehicle. The meter is filled by collecting sparks. Each spark fills your meter by about 5 to 6 pixels. The exact amount is inconsistent, which means you need about 65 to 80 sparks to fill your meter completely. Sparks can be collected in a number of ways. One spark is generated occasionally from player-on-player collisions ahead in the track. 4 sparks are generated by players transitioning from the Skyway to the main track. Golden bumpers release 2 sparks per second as they drive down the track, and release up to 16 sparks when you make contact with them. Spark pads introduced in the 1.3 update on mirror tracks can give up to 3 sparks each. Once the Super Boost meter has been filled, pressing the boost button launches your vehicle up onto the Skyway track, which allows you to travel at higher speeds and turn more efficiently, or even bypass some treacherous sections of the track entirely. Top speed on the Skyway is the same as a vehicle's boost speed, and dash pad speed mimics the Blue Falcon's regular dash pad speed. This makes the Skyway dash pads more valuable to the Wild Goose and Fire Stingray than their regular track counterparts. The amount of time it takes to drain your Super Boost meter while on the Skyway track is very inconsistent. It seems to be related to your race position. When measuring this duration, I was getting times in between 8 and 9 seconds for each vehicle. Once your meter is depleted, the game looks to place you back on the main track at the next drop-off zone. Detailed knowledge of where these drop zones are can be an advantage. Timing your Super Boost to end in a spot with large gaps between drop zones allow your Skyway trip to be extended without a drop in top speed. I discussed this in a video that put me on the map as far as F-Zero 99 content is concerned. By the way, thanks for the support for this channel. Watching, liking, and subscribing helps me be able to make content like this, and I plan to make even more in-depth videos like this one in the future. So with all this collected data, where do we stand as far as which vehicle is best? It helps to start with what changed with the 1.3 patch update first. My last breakdown video concluded that, while all the vehicles are viable in an overall sense, Golden Fox and Fire Stingray held advantages over the others that made them stronger in the hands of elite racers. And this showed in the meta. Golden Fox racers were strong, Fire Stingray pilots were able to challenge them at times, Blue Falcon mains struggled, and the Wild Goose specialized in pre-races, where the KOs helped build power throughout the series. The version 1.3 update has changed this completely. The Fire Stingray has been weakened so badly that it might struggle to compete even at mid-tier levels. The Wild Goose will still be a beast in pre-competitions, but the strongest machines right now are without a doubt the Golden Fox and Blue Falcon. While the Fox did receive some nerfs, it was buffed enough in other areas to maintain its strength, and the Blue Falcon was buffed so strongly that it is now considered a top-tier racer by elite players. Which one gets the nod for being best vehicle in the game? It's super close, but I would have to give it to the Blue Falcon right now. It has the acceleration and dashpad speed to stay on the Fox's heels, enough boost capability to hold its own in the front of the pack, and enough survivability to win in a slugfest with the other beefier machines. With that said, you should still be racing a machine that feels best for you. An experienced Fire Stingray main will still be able to beat an inexperienced Golden Fox driver. But if you're a new player looking to develop a main vehicle to race with, or a disgruntled Stingray pilot looking to jump ship, with all things being equal, the Blue Falcon gives you the best chance of winning out there on the track. Thanks for watching! Make sure to like and subscribe and turn on notifications for more deep dive F-Zero 99 content in the future, as well as reports on any updates that may come our way.